Hello, welcome to the start of making my outer petticoat. We're going to do this a slightly different way to how I made the under petticoat because I want this to have a flatter front. Now you can see here I've got two sections cut out joined together. I'm using a bordeaux anglaise fabric in a kind of ivory to cream colour. It's quite thin, it's not too heavy. First of all, you need to get your length by putting your pocket hoops on again and have somebody measure. Allow for a hem at the bottom and seam allowance at the top if you're putting a waistband in, or whatever method you choose to try. So instead of using a slight curve like I did on the other petticoat, where if you remember I drew a curve across the top here, just follow my finger, this will just be a great big long rectangle piece. Now I already did a mock-up of an outer petticoat earlier, so I already knew what my measurements would be, but I'll just quickly explain the length across the bottom going from left to right. So the width of mine is 90 inches. Now remember to just, in the middle here I've done it in two halves, so you need to incorporate a bit of seam allowance there, but there we go. Okay, so where I showed you just earlier I had those pins to create a side seam. We've now measured from the top here to allow for the pocket about 11 inches, and we just put a pin there to mark where my pocket will finish. Doing exactly the same on the other side. This will be your side seam, and again leave, well, depending on how long you want your pocket to be, you might want it a bit shorter or a bit longer than mine, but I'm going for about 11 inches. I've now sewn my seam. Yes, I've done it on the sewing machine. Right, I'm just pressing the seams with the iron, making sure they're all nice and flat. This is where we want our pocket to be. So I'm just going to continue to press up to the top, the same width as the rest of my seam allowance either side, or thereabouts. Like so, and I'll do the same for the other side as well. Next we want to hem the pocket slits. I've done a double turnover so it's nice and neat on the inside. I have machined this, and what I've done is I've just gone down to a point here on the machine and then turned it round and came back up the other side. Done that for both sides.
Okay, now we're going to make a start on the outer petticoat. This is going to be the design that would have been used back in the Georgian days. What you'll need for the fitting is your pair of hoops, which Tracy is demonstrating, and your under petticoat. Okay, step into your enormous petticoat and you'll be finding the halfway point, and I just put a pin in there. Okay, thank you Tracy. And now we're going to start pleating it up. Okay, I'm having Tracy, as you can see, holding her skirt so it is just touching the floor. It will have a hem eventually, but I'd rather have too much at the bottom than not enough. So pull it up slightly, Trace. That's it, stop. Now what I've done here is this pin marks her waistline, so I've just put a pin in there so I know that is where the length of her skirt will be. Okay, I've turned over what was the excess to the inside, and I've just pinned that onto traces in a petticoat. So as you can see, it is just touching the floor. Okay, we're just getting a level now on the side of the skirt. I'm pulling this the material up so it just sits on the floor. Then moving up to the waist, this is where the pocket is. So Tracy, if you just hold that there, I'm just going to turn over the edge of the pocket so that it sits at the waist, like so. Just going to pin that in. And I'll do the same for the back. So turn over all that excess. Just going to pin that to the waistband, like so. Okay, now I'm going to sort out all this excess that we've got here, and what I'm going to do is turn it all into the inside. I'm trying to get a straight line between this point here and this point here. I'm going to pull it until I can get the line that I want. Just checking it now again. That's straight. That's straight. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to put some pins in just to hold that in place. Right, we'll start at the side, and I've turned over the excess to the inside, and now I'm going to make sure that it meets up to the waistline, like so. Okay, we've got our mark in the middle and we've put our pin on the side, and now you tuck in the excess. Now what I'm aiming for is, is more or less a straight line, straight across. So you tuck in the excess until you can get a straight line this side, and a straight line this side, and if you look at the floor, it's still touching the floor. So if there's too much on the floor, take it up. If there's not enough on the floor, take it down. Now I'm going to start on the side with a double pleat. Okay, this is the first of my pleats. That measures about 2.5 centimetres, that's about 1.5 inches. So I've done it once, and now I'm going to put another pleat on top of that, exactly the same size. I'm now going to pleat it up, carrying on doing 1.5 inch pleats, and you're going to try and put as many as you can towards the side, and eventually we'll get back to the front and I'll video it again at the end. I've managed to get 3 big pleats in at the side here. Depending on the size of your waist, you might be able to get another pleat in, but make sure it's really taut across to your middle pin here, because we want most of it flat with all the pleating on the side. And here is my finished pleating, nice and flat in the front, and then pleating on the other side, and just about meeting it up at the side. If there's a gap, it doesn't matter.
I'm now going to whip all my pleats together. So I've made a start here on the edge, just going over it a few times with the thread, and sorry about this, just go from the back up to the other side, pull, just go in and out near the top edge, in and out, and you're just going over and over and over that kind of whipping action. You can machine this if you want to, but depending how good your machine is, it can be a bit bulky, especially where we've done a double pleat here. It'll be extra thick, so your machine might struggle a little bit with it. But I found this hand method is quite good. Then I will just go all the way to the end doing that, and I will finish there where that last pleat is. There's no need to actually go across the middle part. Okay, I'm going to put a band on the front and back of my petticoats. There's probably a couple of ways or several ways you could do this. You can do a waistband like I did on my other petticoats, it's up to you, but I just sort of come up with this way. I started off by turning an end in at the end of my herringbone tape here, and I've sewn that down just along the edges there so it stays. I then want to sew that to the edge here. Okay, I've just gone ahead and started sewing for here first because it's a bit bulky, so it takes just a minute just to go through all those thicknesses. And basically just tacking it down, probably just a quarter way down, or you could just whip it over the edge if you wanted to, like you saw me do earlier here with the whipping. Just want to make sure that your edge is lining up. You can try some machine, but it's a lot of thicknesses to go through and it might struggle. So just make sure you're sewing across equal distance away. As I say, there's many different methods you can do this. You can create a proper waistband, you could just tack it onto the front, you know, but just make sure your pleats are lying flat as well as you go. Then I'll just do that all the way along, right the way through to the other side, so it will look like this when it's finished. Okay, I've continued to sew to the end here, then I've stopped. Then what I've done is the same as I did at the beginning. I want to turn that end in, so this is why I've stopped at that point. So I've just gone ahead and sewn the ends together there, the same I did the other way, so it's all nice and neat, and I'll just continue sewing along here to the end. Okay, right, we've just sewn down this to the outside. Next I'm going to turn this up, keeping all this facing up, just turn it up. And I'm just, now you can whip the top edge like I did on here earlier, but I'm just literally catching it to the inside, just taking a little bit of the fabric. I do this on a lot of waistbands on say my Disney princess videos, if you look at some of the skirts on those. It's a little bit hard to start with because it's a bit bulky here, so you might want a thimble. But I'm just barely catching the edges, just like so there, just going through it barely. Every now and then I'm going over it twice, just for extra strength. Okay, now I've turned my edge over. I've got a nice neat little waistband there. Just gives it a bit of an edge. If you remember earlier, we had all this fabric turning to the inside when we did our pleating. The Georgians very rarely cut anything off on the inside, but you're probably wondering what to do about the edges. Well, I've pinked mine with some pinking shears. You can overlock it with a modern overlocker, or you can machine a hem. It's completely up to you. But next what we want to do is, where we've got this edge here, like so, and you have your other edge here which you hemmed up earlier, you'll then just want to catch that to that with a little whip stitch, just so it just joins those and it stops this flapping about too much. Okay, where we have our pocket opening here, as said, I'm just anchoring this down so it keeps them nice and flat together. You can just see I've made a start there. I'm just again doing a little tiny whip stitch. On the bottom of my skirt, I've decided to do this wide trim. It's 9 centimeters wide. I've just pinked the edges with some pinking shears, and I've run a gathering thread through the middle of it. So now what I'm going to do, I might do it by hand or machine, I haven't decided, is just sew that down in the middle. To create my skirt, I'm using this Broadway Anglaise cotton trim. It is 10 centimeters, 100 millimeters wide, and it's in the same colour as the skirt. I've also marked along the top here 1 inch dots, so every inch you'll see a dot. This is to help me pleat the trim. So basically I'm just matching dot to dot like so, and then the next one I go to that dot as I go along. I'm doing this by hand, and I go and do that all the way along this piece. I've already taken my measurements so I'll know how much I'll need. Just bear in mind again when you gather or pleat that it's going to eat up a lot more fabric. Next, just sew your pleats in place. I've now finished pleating my trim, and I've gone ahead and sewn an extra piece of narrow lace on the top. So I have one for the bottom and one for the next layer up. I'm now going to start putting my trim on the skirt, and I've marked the halfway point between each seam end to end, and I've marked the halfway point on my lace like so. Then I just need to space it out a bit. I'm going to put the big one here, just a couple of inches, well not a couple, a few inches between, and then the smaller one will go about there. I've now sewn the trim on, and this finishes the petticoat.